Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the internet, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news. Bunch of friends standing around a virtual water cooler, talking about all this great stuff. We've got a hell of a lot of stuff to cover here today, guys. So let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Last night, the first screenings of The Nun came out. Now, we're going to talk about The Nun a little bit more here in just a bit. We're going to talk about this first. Now, the Conjuring series has been building momentum. Annabelle Creation was actually a pretty solid movie and did very well on its opening weekend. And its opening night, it set the Conjuring franchise record, Annabelle Creation that is, making $4 million on its opening night, its opening Thursday night. Well, The Nun just broke that Conjuring series record, as The Nun has taken in $5.4 million on its opening Thursday night. Now, to put this into perspective, Annabelle Creation opened with $4 million and went on its Thursday night and went on to have an opening weekend box office of plus $35 million. So right now, analysts are saying that The Nun could actually come in between $35 and $45 million. Now, again, more context. The context of that is, you got to keep in mind, these Conjuring films, they get made for like bus fare. They don't spend $100 million on making these Conjuring movies. They like spend bus fare on them, like sometimes $5 million, sometimes $15 million. I'm not quite sure what the budget was on this movie, but obviously, without any question, this is going to be another very, very profitable movie for this franchise. And I'll tell you what, I didn't really sense that much buzz for the film going into it. I didn't sense that much buzz. I was really surprised when I went to go see it last night, and the theater was pretty much packed. It was pretty much a packed house, and I was looking around, really? Because look, The Conjuring is a popular series, yes, but, again, not a lot of tremendous buzz I felt online for the film, but lo and behold, $5.4 million on its opening Thursday, going to come in anywhere between 35 and 45, maybe even north of that. So, hey, it's another huge success for the good folks over there at the Conjuring series. All right, let's talk about this as well. One of the questions a lot of us have been talking about lately is, when are we going to get Daredevil Season 3? Well, the reports right now are kind of reconfirming that it's expected to drop not in 2019, but rather maybe closer to the end of the year. Like, it may actually still debut in the calendar year of 2018. More importantly than that, at least for today, is that a new teaser for Daredevil Season 3 dropped. And it's just a little 30-second teaser. You don't see an awful lot, but it was powerful nonetheless. You got Matt Murdock in like a scene and in a setting that we're used to seeing him in. He's in the confessional booth at the church again. And it's the whole piece is called like Darkness Only Responds to Darkness. And it shows us again this evolution, or de-evolution if you want, of the character of Matt Murdock. And he's getting darker and darker and darker. And he's like saying, I used to think you could, bring justice in a court of law, fight it with the light, but now I'm realizing darkness only responds to darkness. And he ends it by saying, I'd rather die as the devil than live as Matt Murdock. I thought it was a pretty good spot, to be honest with you. I thought it was a pretty damn good spot for the movie, for the show, so I'm pretty excited about it. It's a good looking spot. I expect probably within the next 2 weeks we're gonna get a full trailer, like a full fleshed out trailer for Daredevil Season 3. I expect within the month we'll get the release date, and I am expecting it's gonna be before the end of December. It's possible it could open in January or February, but I'm expecting December. We'll have to wait and see if that actually pans out. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go back and talk about The Nun. So I went to go see The Nun last night. I was quite excited to watch it. I was quite excited to see it. I really liked Annabelle Creation. I have liked all of the Conjuring films so far, with the exception of the first Annabelle movie. That first Annabelle movie, no bueno. Like, not so good. Not so good at all. The second one was actually a lot of fun. I had a great time with Annabelle Creation, and I've loved the trailers for The Nun. Went in to go see it. Here are my thoughts. Not good. Not a good film. The one thing I will say was actually quite strong about it was the Hateful Eight's Demián Bichir. stars in it as the priest. And you know what? He's really good. He actually really brings it in the movie. It really kind of stands out a lot amongst a lot of other questionable material in the film, but he stands out and he is a shining part of the movie. The other positive thing I'll say about it is there are some good creeps in it. You know, you get the creeps. The very creepy, unsettling feelings in a few spots throughout the film. And that is one of the most important things for a horror film to do. So it does do that to a degree. To a degree. But I think I knew what I was in for with the nun in the first scene. And the first scene of the movie is these two nuns. It's kind of introducing you to the world. And it's these two nuns approaching an evil. And the dialogue between the two nuns is so bad. It's so bad. Honestly, I said to a couple of my friends last night who I saw it with, I said, it felt like a video game cutscene dialogue. Like really over-explaino, all that kind of stuff. And it just felt so bad and so cheesy. And I'm like, oh my goodness, is this what we're in for the rest of the movie? And sure enough, it was. All the dialogue throughout it is really pretty bad. And here's the other thing. We've all seen this motif in horror movies, and used right, it can be very effective. You know the motif I'm talking about, where it's like, I hear a creepy sound coming from downstairs. I'm going to go check it out. And everybody in the audience is going, don't go down there. What are you talking about, right? So this movie uses that technique about 5 times. And once or twice it's pretty effective, but then they keep going back to it. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this person that I know died like 10 years ago running around going into the woods at night. I'm going to go follow them. Ooh, I see this eerie shadow that has no explanation moving into this dark crypt corner. I'm going to go follow it. Oh, I'm hearing these sounds that sound like they're coming straight from hell. I better go check it out. I mean, and they do it over and over and over again throughout the film, to the point that, like, I heard a lot of people around me the first time they used that hook, and people going around, no, what are you doing? Don't go in there, right? Which is the response you want from an audience. But they went back to it so many times, it had no effect after that, and kind of undid whatever effect they had of it previously. Now, I should also say one other kind of positive thing about The Nun is it very briefly throughout the film, just using a very, very little amount of screen time for it, they do draw the connections between The Nun and the rest of the Conjuring universe, and they do a pretty effective job with it, using very, very little screen time to do it. And I'm not going to give away what it is they do. You'll see it for yourself. But they did that pretty effectively. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, what I couldn't get past was how bad the dialogue was. How a little bit cheesy, with the exception of Demián Bichir, how cheesy a lot of the performances were. The overuse to the point that they're bludgeoning you over the head with certain classic horror hooks that made them lose all of their effectiveness. And unfortunately, those downsides to the film weren't enough, or were too much. Just too much for the few positives. Demián Bichir, the clever tie-ins to the Conjuring universe. The fact that they did give you a nice little sense of creepiness every once in a while. Unfortunately, those good things just got overshadowed by the bad things for me. So, unfortunately for me, at the end of the day, I really can't recommend going to see The Nun. I hate saying that, but I really cannot recommend going to see The Nun. All right, let's move on from that now. Speaking of movie reviews, I saw another film last night with my girl, Jennifer Garner, in her new film, Peppermint. And I think the trailers for this movie have looked outstanding. I love Jennifer Garner in these roles. I was really stoked and excited to go see it last night, part of my doubleheader with The Nun. And I also cannot recommend it. I can't recommend it. Now, let me talk about some of the good things about the film first. Number one, Jennifer Garner delivers. Everybody knows, like, she's my big celebrity crush, so maybe I have a little bit of bias. But honestly, put that aside. Most people are talking to her buzzing about Jennifer Garner. She's terrific in this movie. And I'll say this too. There are lots of actors in Hollywood who play action heroes. There are only 4 or 5 who are legit action stars. Jennifer Garner is legit one of them. She sells you on all the action in it. And the action in it is the highlight of the movie. The action in it is brutal. It's violent. It does have a little, not as good as John Wick, but it's got a John Wick kind of feel to it. And again, I'm not saying it's as good as the action is not as good as John Wick. It's not. But it's in that vein, and it's exciting, and it's thrilling. And there are a number of times you go, oh, when you're seeing things she's doing to people. Garner plays a ruthless, like nothing, like a lot of characters they say in movies have nothing left to lose. They really make this character as somebody who has nothing left to lose, and they actually play the character like that, and it makes them ruthless, sometimes sadistic. It's very, very brutal, and Jennifer Garner plays it great. She's a wonderful action star in it. And look, if you're just looking for a little bit of fun at the movies this weekend, yeah, maybe you should go check out Peppermint. However, and unfortunately, this movie is about 20 minutes too long. This is a movie that very, very much could have benefited from a better editor. Now, you all see from the trailers that the whole setup of this movie is Jennifer Garner loses her husband and her daughter to some gangsters, and the gangsters get off, and they don't get punished for it. She disappears for 5 years, comes back to punish them. They spent, in my opinion, far too much time in that first part. And look, I know you do want to establish the character. You want to establish her connection to her husband and her daughter. You got to be able to feel her pain if you're going to get what she's doing in the rest of the movie. I understand that, but I still feel they spent too much time there. I think they could have done it faster and still had the same impact. So there's that. Then, once you get to the bad guys, I mean, it is straight out of a corny gang crime 1980s style film, and I don't mean that in the good way, because there's a good way to do that, but it was just the villain completely one-dimensional with nothing but stereotypical line after stereotypical line after stereotypical line coming out of his mouth, and it just made it weak, you know? It just made it weak. What could have been a very, very strong premise with this, a mother out for revenge. Because you guys know, I am a sucker for the righteous vengeance of a parent whose child has been harmed or killed. Those types, like where they're talking about Taken or whatever, I am a sucker. I will buy into those movies every day, man. Twice on Sundays. And they had this great premise, but with such horrible villains, a narrative jumps that just didn't make much sense at all. And the fact that it did drag in many places, despite some fantastic action, there wasn't enough of the fantastic action to make up for that extra 20-25 minutes that should have been sliced out of the film. And you can really feel the weight of that throughout the movie. Jennifer Garner crushes it. Absolutely does. And the action is great. But again, much like I was saying with The Nun, those good things that are there unfortunately get drowned out by the pacing issues, many opportunities in the film that could have really been highlighted by some sharp dialogue, instead had some very bad dialogue, horrible villains. Again, I mentioned the bad pacing, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, those things kind of overshadow the good stuff in it. So, yeah, I am sitting at a point where, unfortunately for me, I cannot recommend Peppermint. And that breaks my heart because my girl Jennifer Garner, I've been looking forward to this movie. The trailers looked fantastic and all, but I just can't recommend it. So there you go. Okay, let's move on now to this item. There was a big stir going around yesterday because it has been announced that Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, is going to be receiving the Thalberg Academy Award. That's one of their honorary awards. She's going to be receiving an Oscar at this upcoming Academy Awards, and she is the first woman in history to become a recipient of the coveted award. Now, this sparked off a lot of very butthurt, angry people going off saying, what? How can Kathleen Kennedy get an Oscar and blah, blah, because these are people who don't like Star Wars. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with not liking Star Wars. That's perfectly fine. Or the new Star Wars at any rate. Go to hell if you don't like the originals. I'm kidding. It's all subjective. Anyway. So a lot of very butthurt people screaming and yelling and crying about Kathleen Kennedy's getting an Oscar. Well, the fact of the matter is she deserves it. She really does. But keep this in mind, and this kind of came up on open mic yesterday. This is important to understand. She is not getting this Academy Award for her work on the Star Wars films. That's not what she's getting this Academy Award for. She is getting this Academy Award in recognition of the body of work that she has put together over her career. And I'm sorry, but if you don't acknowledge that she is a worthy recipient of this award when you sit back and look at the body of work she has done as a producer over the course of her career, then you're either being willfully ignorant or just completely showing your bias. You can't, with any objectivity or with any sort of sane mind, say that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't deserve this. Let's just look at her career for a second. Remember, this is an award being given in recognition of producers for the Thalberg Award. Let's look at this. First of all, Kathleen Kennedy's been the producer on no less than 8 of her movies have been nominated for Best Picture. E.T., The Color Purple, The Sixth Sense, Seabiscuit, Munich, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Warhorse, and of course Lincoln. And on top of that, she's got all these other films that she's been the producer on. Adventures of Tintin, Poigno, War of the Worlds, AI, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, my tied for #1 comedy of all time, Noises Off, Cape Fear, Hook, Back to the Future 2, The Goonies, Gremlins, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Poltergeist, and there are many, 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 many more. Look at me with a straight face and tell me she doesn't deserve this or she's not worthy of this particular honor. Obviously she is. That's obvious. I would agree with everybody who's complaining about it that she does not deserve it for the work done on the Star Wars films. Hey, I'll stand there with you. I will. I'll stand beside you on that. Yeah. But that's not what she's getting this award for. And it boggles my mind seeing some people online who just don't seem to get that. They're just saying, oh, they're just giving it to her for Star Wars. They're just giving it to her for Star Wars. Really? 8 films nominated for Best Picture. Over a dozen high classic films that Steven Spielberg has called her simply the most gifted producer he's ever worked with. Tell me again with a straight face that she is not worthy of this award. Obviously she's worthy of it. It's a no-brainer. Of course she is. And I will agree with you that she doesn't deserve it for Star Wars, but that's not what she's getting it for. She's not getting it for Star Wars stuff. So everybody just take a breath. Relax, says the guy who rants all the time. But take a breath. Relax. It ain't for the Star Wars stuff. It's for her body of work. And even if you're one of those people who hates the Star Wars movies, and there's nothing wrong with that. But even if you are one of those people, even you have to acknowledge, looking at her body of work, she is absolutely a worthy recipient of this. There's just no doubt about it. So just put the bias aside and just take for what it is. Look, I don't like the original Blade Runner, right? But guess what? I'm never going to argue with anybody who says, hey, yeah, but it has its place in the all-time, halls of classic films, particularly sci-fi. It's like, hey, yeah, the film doesn't work for me, but I acknowledge that. I do acknowledge that. That's true. Whether I like the movie or not, that is true. I think a lot of people with this whole Kathleen Kennedy thing are just going to have to look at it the same way. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of Kathleen Kennedy, but when you look at her body of work, does she deserve this recognition? Yeah, you got to acknowledge that she does. So we'll leave it at that. Okay, and last thing off the top we're going to talk about here is this. The reviews for The Predator have now hit online, and they're pretty damn good. The last I checked, The Predator is sitting at 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviews are now coming out, and Predator seems to be going over pretty well with the critics. I mean, not all of them like it, but a lot of them do. Let's just take a look at a couple of the highlights here. From Total Film, Matthew Leyland writes, what Black's movie really has going for it is pace. It starts with a crash, followed swiftly by a bang and a vast swatches of wallop. The relentlessness doesn't allow you any time to catch a yawn, but it's also not too conducive to tension or surprise. Hugh Armitage from Digital Spy writes, The Predator is a flawed actioner, but a strong cast and some Shane Black magic give it a sparkle that has been lacking from recent attempts to revive the killer franchise. Moving on, one of our friends, Jim Vivoda, writes from IGN, a Predator movie, he didn't like it. He writes, a Predator movie lives or dies based on how cool and intimidating its title character is, and that's where the Predator proves woefully inconsistent. However, Chris from Slash Film did like it. While you're watching the movie, it's hard not to get caught up in all the fun. Black and company are having a blast here, and it's infectious. And let's just take a look at just two more. At two of the biggest outlets. They seem to be split on it. The Hollywood Reporter likes it, writing, Black's movie is so cleverly over the top that it's easy and pleasurable enough to watch, though never exactly scary or suspenseful. Whereas Dennis from Variety writes, it's an exhaustingly energetic mess in which a coherent plot and credible characters aren't even on the cluttered menu. So, not all the critics like it, but like I said, the last I checked, 78% of them do. They're saying it's just got a lot of action, a lot of fun, what a lot of people were looking for. Now, some people were looking for the Predator movie to be more of a horror sort of idea, but Shane Black said right from the beginning he was going for the action, the fun, all that kind of stuff, the gore of a good Predator movie. And it seems like, at least from the early reactions that we're seeing here, that he may have accomplished that. Now, I haven't seen the film yet. I didn't want to make the hour and 20-minute drive to go watch it, so I'm just going to have to wait till the film comes out just like everybody else. But so far, the reactions look like they're pretty positive. It looks like they may have a winner on this one. Okay, with that out of the way now, let's go on to our main topics today. And of course, our main topics are the topics that are submitted by you guys. How do you submit a topic or a question to be on the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me time at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. Once again, email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And keep your emails to 90 words or less, and maybe you will see one of your emails pop up on the John Campea Show. All right, let's get on to the first email. And the first email today comes to us from Martin Brown, who writes, I was so sad to hear about the passing of Burt Reynolds. My favorite film of his was Boogie Nights. I was wondering if you had any favorites. And yeah, the passing of Burt Reynolds was shocking. I was surprised. I mean, we all know he was getting older, but I never heard he was ill or anything like that. You know, I mentioned this on Open Mic yesterday, but one of the really odd things about it for me is that there has never been a time in my life, since the day I was born, that Burt Reynolds wasn't a big movie star. The day I was born, Burt Reynolds was one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and everybody to this day knows Burt Reynolds, right? And how great was Norm Macdonald's Burt Reynolds when he used to do Celebrity Jeopardy on Saturday Night Live? Yeah, my name's Turd Ferguson. It's funny. I love that. Anyway, Burt was just everything about the movie star. You know, that era of movie star. Like you got your golden age style of movie stars like a George Clooney, but then you had the bad boy movie star. That was Burt Reynolds. And, you know, one of the greatest quotes I ever heard him say is, you know, at the end of the day, one of the things they can't take away from me is I had more fun than anybody else. And that's it, right? You win. When you're the guy who checks out having had more fun than anybody else, you win. Burt Reynolds wins. And when you start talking about, you know, the movies of Burt Reynolds and what, like he's done a lot over the years, and he had different eras to his career, obviously. Like, but for me, when you're talking about some of my favorite films of Burt Reynolds, you're talking about films like, well, obviously Deliverance is right up there. There's one he did with Dolly Parton that I love. It's called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Longest Yards. Obviously, Smokey and the Bandit is another one. And then, of course, a lot of people, when they think of Burt Reynolds today, what they think about is Boogie Nights for obvious reasons and for very, very good reasons. He was amazing in that. And that was kind of going to be a resurgence of his, but then he talked a lot about how he didn't necessarily even want to do a lot. And there's a very young looking Mark Wahlberg there with him in Boogie Nights, which is pretty cool. But it is just hard for me to wrap my head around that, you know, Burt Reynolds isn't with us anymore. It's just strange to me. It's really strange. But what a career, what a life. He is going to be one of the greatest movie stars of all time, and a very sad goodbye and RIP to one of the best. Burt Reynolds, man, one of the best. All right, let's move on to the second email. And the second email today comes to us from Jake O'Connor, who writes, Saints be praised. Did you hear that the Academy has pulled their stupid Best Popular Film category from the Oscars this year? This is great news. Do you think the backlash had anything to do with it? If so, do you think they may still try to implement it in future years? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. I appreciate it. And yes, for those of you who did not know, oh my goodness, thank heavens they pulled the plug on the most popular film category at the Oscars that they were going to start this year. Now, let's be clear here. They haven't said that they've killed it. What they have said is that they're postponing it, all right? They're going to postpone it. They said they need to go back, reevaluate. Well, no kidding. Even they never understood what this was supposed to be. Like a most best popular movie category, what even qualifies for that? We don't know. We just think it's a good idea. Idiots. It was the most idiotic thing I had ever heard coming out of the Oscars. It was just one of the stupidest ideas. And yes, the backlash was harsh and it was fast. And you know what the unfortunate thing is? The unfortunate thing is when they announced these, the best popular movie category, when they announced that, they announced a couple of other changes as well that I actually think are pretty good changes. And those pretty good changes kind of got overlooked by everybody because we were all talking about just how horrible this best popular film category was. It was just so idiotic that we overlooked some of the good changes. Like reducing the number of categories that they're going to be showing on air and a couple of others. Some very, very good changes. And there are other good changes to make. Now, here's the official statement coming out of the Academy. And the CEO of the Academy, Dawn Hudson, she said the following. There has been a wide range of reactions to the introduction of a new award, and we recognize the need for further discussion with our members. I want to highlight something here. She says, there has been a wide range of reactions to the introduction of a new award. No, there hasn't. There has not been a wide range of reactions. There has been one reaction. You're stupid. I mean, the idea was stupid. She's a very, very smart person, wonderful person. I love the Academy. But that was a stupid idea. There has not been a wide range of reactions. There has pretty much been one overwhelming reaction, which is, this is one of the most idiotic ideas you could have possibly come up with. That's the only reaction. Maybe your cousin said, no, I think that'll be pretty cool. Okay, fine. Yes, there are some people out there that may have said that. But overall, on large, the reaction from everybody has been, this is a dumb idea. Actors have been saying it's stupid. News outlets have been saying it's stupid. Even Variety, Hollywood Reporter writing pieces about how this is completely ridiculous. So thank goodness it seems to be done. It's dead. Now, it is possible they could try to bring it back in some other kind of form. That's possible. But here's hoping they get enough positive feedback from everybody, from them canceling it right now, that they just keep it canceled. Here's hoping. I mean, I don't want them to stop coming up with new ideas, sure, but think them through, man. Just think them through. All right, let's move on now to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from Chaz Riddle, who writes, John, been watching your show, plural, for a long time now. Always entertaining. Thank you so much, Chaz. I have watched Infinity War probably 25 to 30 times, and a couple of things always pop out at me, but mostly, why does Tony keep the flip phone in his pocket? A tech genius would program the number into his database. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And that is something, first of all, I've had a bunch of people asking me, why is Tony Stark carrying around a flip phone? Like in that scene in the movie, you can see the phone in his hand there. When he opens the phone, people are just assuming, oh, that's Tony Stark's phone, and he just happens to have Captain America's number in there, right? They forget that is the phone that Captain America sent to him at the end of Civil War. Remember? At the end of Civil War, Captain America sends him this phone with a note that basically says, hey, look, we're on opposite sides of things right now, but if you ever need me, I'll be there, right? That's kind of his last thing. Obviously, it's something that Iron Man took to heart because he keeps that phone with him. He keeps that phone with him. Like he says to Bruce Banner, it's like, me and Cap aren't exactly talking right now. They're not, but it meant enough to him that he keeps that phone with him. Now, yes, the question can be, well, couldn't he just get the number out of the phone and put it into another phone? The only response I have to that is, I'm thinking there's something special about the phone, that only this device will reach out and get a hold of Captain America, regardless of where he is in the world. I'm thinking there's something, that's just speculation. There's nothing in the movie said directly about it. I'm just speculating. But I'm speculating that there's something else unique about the device that makes it so only it can reach Captain America. That's the only guess I have. That's the only guess I have. Otherwise, like, if it's just a regular cell phone calling just another regular cell phone, well, you could probably ping that and figure out, and the government could find out where in the world Captain America is. So I got to assume, and it is just an assumption, I've got to assume that there is something else special about the phone. I don't know, have you guys heard other theories about that? Like, why did Iron Man just keep that phone on him instead of just putting the number into something else? Do you have a theory? Let me hear your theory. Jump down to the comment section and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's move on to the fourth email today. And the fourth email today comes to us from Emilio Esparza, who writes, Kevin Feige has now officially stated that we can expect to see a lot more female lead Marvel movies after Captain America, or I should say Captain Marvel, saying that there are a lot of announcements coming. Do you think this is a political decision or a creative one? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yes, this is a creative decision. It's absolutely a creative decision. It's not a political decision, it's a creative decision. There are lots of great female comic book characters, and the fact of the matter is, we've gone 20 MCU movies in a row that were just all male lead. You know, I love it when I hear these people say, they're doing a Captain Marvel movie? That's just a political agenda. What? Why is it a political agenda? I thought they're just making a movie about a very cool comic book character. No, it's a political agenda putting a female lead. That's a political agenda. But were the other films political agendas? No. But they did 20 movies in a row with, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Wasp had a co-lead role, so let's take that one out of it. But essentially, they had 20 movies in a row that were all male lead movies. Why isn't that an agenda, but having one with a woman in the lead is an agenda? It just is. You know, that's basically all they're left with. That's basically all they're left with. You know, my argument is, if you're going to say having 1 or 2 or 3 movies with female leads is a female agenda, then you have, if you want to follow that logic through, you have to say that 20 films in a row with all male lead things, and you got to say that's an agenda too. You got to say that's an anti-female agenda. And obviously, they're not anti-women agendas. But I'm just saying, if you're going to say having a couple of female-led movies are an agenda, well, then you got to say that 20 in a row with male leads is an agenda too. You just got to follow your own logic through. That's all I'm saying. Clearly, the other MCU movies are not anti-female agenda movies, nor is a Captain America movie. I keep saying Captain America. Nor is a Captain Marvel movie an agenda. What it is making a movie that they think is going to appeal to people and people will want to come out and support. That's why they made Wonder Woman. That's why they're making Captain Marvel. And that's why we're going to get more. Now, here's specifically what Kevin Feige had to say about it. He said, with Ant-Man and the Wasp, and now with Captain Marvel, and many movies to be announced in the near future, I'm anxious for the time where it's not a novelty that there's a female lead superhero movie, but it is the norm. And it's less of a story of, oh, look, a female hero. And it's more of a story of, oh, what's this about? Who's this character? I'm excited to see that. And I think we can get there. Now, in talking about why previous female-led movies haven't worked, Kevin Feige went on to say this. I think there are a lot of reasons, not the least of which was, he was specifically asked about why there hasn't been a lot of female lead heroes up till now in this new era of comic book movies. And he said, I think there are a lot of reasons, not the least of which was fighting for many years the erroneous notion that audiences did not want to see a female-led hero film because of a slew of films 15 years ago that didn't work. And my belief was always that they didn't work not because they were female lead stories, they didn't work because they were not particularly good movies. And you know what, Kevin Feige's got a point. Whether you're looking at, My Girl Jennifer Garner, but if you look at her Elektra movie, we're talking about, Catwoman or others, the Supergirl from others. Look, that's him speculating, but obviously you can make a point that the reason those films didn't work is they weren't particularly good films. When you put out good films, like Wonder Woman was, people rush out in droves to go see it. If you put out a movie like Captain Marvel, hopefully it's good, and if it is good, people are going to run out in droves to go see it. The point here is that there are so many within the lore of comics and just what they've developed within the MCU itself. There are so many rich, deep, powerful, kick-ass, sort of characters and female roles that they have. A lot of people wanting a Scarlet or a Black Widow movie for a long time as well. There are just so many of them out there that to continue to not make any of them, to continue to make all of these movies that have no female leads in them, that begins to look like the agenda. That's the agenda. By starting to include these characters in these films and starting to include these characters in the roster of their own standalone films, all you're doing is doing what's common sense. Hey, we got a whole bunch of these male characters, and so we make a whole bunch of those male character movies. But we also got a bunch of these female characters. Let's make some female character movies as well. There's no agenda there. It's a creative decision, not a political one. Anybody who tries to tell you it's a political decision based on a political agenda, they're the ones with the political agenda. If anybody tries to tell you that Kevin Feige is doing this as some sort of political agenda, then they're the ones who have the agenda. Well, like I said, we've had nearly 20 films without any female lead. And now that we have a couple as an agenda? No, it's not an agenda, it's a creative decision. Now, whether or not that creative decision ends up being a good decision or a bad decision, well, who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. Maybe Captain Marvel sucks, right? I doubt it will, but hey, it could. Every movie could suck. Maybe they do a Black Widow movie. Not something, I don't want a Black Widow movie just because I'm not that interested in that particular character to have a standalone film. But let's say they make a Black Widow character. It could suck. Right? I mean, they could be bad. Yeah. But it's still a creative decision. So anyway, that's just the way I sort of see that. All right, let's move on now to the final emailed in topic today. And the final emailed in topic today comes us from Jamie W., who writes, with the new Marvel Spider-Man game hitting the stores and the reviews being amazing, do you think there could be any danger of the game cheapening or hurting the Spider-Man movies? What I mean is, if people love the game and the new movie doesn't live up to the game, could that cause backlash against the movie and the MCU as a whole? Thanks. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Jamie. And of course, we've been talking about this the last couple of days. The brand new Spider-Man game, Marvel's Spider-Man, on the PS4 has just come out, and the reviews are in. People are raving about it. They're saying it's fantastic. I'm actually going to go out and buy a PlayStation 4 just so I can play this game and try it. See what everybody's talking about, right? So I'm going to be going out and getting that. So it's got a lot of momentum right now. So Jamie's asking the question that I've heard in different ways. Other people say, with this being so big and so great and people loving it so much, could that have a negative impact on the way people see or react to the Spider-Man Far From Home movie? Could it damage the movie? If this game's so good and the movie can't possibly live up to it, does that damage Spider-Man Far From Home? Does it damage the MCU as a whole? I can totally understand asking the question. I totally understand the question. However, I would say no for two different reasons. Reason number one, video game players are smart enough to know there's a difference between video games and movies, right? Video game players are far too intelligent to confuse and not understand the differences between a video game and a movie. They understand they're two different things and they're not to be compared. They need to be compared to other things. They need to be held to other standards. They're not cross-pollinated as far as your comparisons goes. Video game players are very smart people. They know this. So I really don't think there's a danger there for that. Number two is that video games kind of connected to number one. Video games are about gameplay. Like if the gameplay's bad, nothing else happens. All the stuff I'm hearing is that it's got a good solid story and the gameplay's great, blah, blah, blah. But this gameplay thing, whereas the movies just sit back and watch the movie unfold, right? So I'll be honest with you. While I understand the question and where that's coming from, I really don't think there's any danger of that, no matter how good the game is. Even if Marvel's Spider-Man PS4 game is the greatest game of all time, I still don't think it poses any sort of threat or danger to Spider-Man Far From Home, the movie. The only thing that poses a threat to Spider-Man Far From Home, the movie, is Spider-Man Far From Home, the movie. If the movie comes out and it disappoints, and if it's a big step backwards from Spider-Man Homecoming and all that kind of stuff, that's what will damage it. And maybe if that movie's not so good, then you'll hear people start to draw comparisons to the video game, because winning cures everything, but losing emphasizes pre-existing problems. So like if Spider-Man Far From Home is a bad film, yeah, then you'll hear people start drawing comparisons to the video game. But otherwise, under normal circumstances and all other things being equal, I just don't think that's the case. I just don't think that's going to happen. So I think the game and the movie are pretty much insulated from each other. And if anything else, just the brand name of Spider-Man is being promoted. So that's just good for both parties, to be honest. I think Spider-Man, the video game, is benefiting from Spider-Man in the MCU. And I think Spider-Man in the MCU with Far From Home is going to benefit from the video game. So honestly, I think that's the way it's going to kind of play out. All right, guys, that will do it for the emailed in questions of the day. We still got some time here, so why don't we go over and take some live questions? And we've already got a whole bunch of live questions here, so let's start taking them with this one. The first one comes to us from Koba, who writes, could Marvel introduce Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, as a new female superhero? I really don't think so. This was kind of brought up the other day as well. Somebody was mentioning another Spider character from that universe. I don't think you're going to see them go with derivative characters. I don't think you're going to see the MCU do derivative characters. So I don't think we're going to see She-Hulk. Although with there being an emphasis on trying to find good female characters to base films around, I mean, that could be an exception. She-Hulk could be an exception. But even then, I don't think they're going to do a She-Hulk. I don't think they're going to do a second Spider-Man. I don't like a Miles Morales. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to have Spider-Gwen in the live action. Now, in the animated stuff, we know they're going to do stuff like that. But I think just because they're not going to do derivative heroes, I don't think they're going to do that. Now, I could be wrong. And I'm not saying there's not good creative merit to the idea of doing that. I'm just saying it's not something I think they're going to do. And yeah, so I'm going to say I doubt it. Anything's possible, though. Absolutely, anything's possible. Ben Rayner writes, do you think with Carrie Fisher passing, Lucasfilm regrets what they did to Han Solo? No, I think they had no choice. Like, we know that Harrison Ford for decades wanted Han Solo to die in Return of the Jedi. Like he wanted Han Solo to die in the original trilogy. I believe the only way they were able to get him to come back was that was for him to get his death scene. So because of that, I mean, I think they lament that they don't have Han Solo still in their movies, but I think they kind of knew they were only going to get him for one. No matter what, they were only going to get him for one. So there's no point in feeling regret over it because they didn't really have a choice, I don't think. Sebastian writes, Adam Aaron is the CEO of AMC Entertainment and is from Philly. Oh, that's right. So Sebastian was talking the other day about this guy from Philly. Why is MoviePass picking a fight from him? It's the new CEO. See, he wasn't the CEO when I was there. Jerry Lopez was the CEO. Brilliant executive. Jerry Lopez was the CEO when I was there. So yeah, there's that. Dave Atkins writes, thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077. So Cyberpunk 2077 is this new video game coming out. Or is it out already? No, I think it's just coming out. Anyway, and it's like set in a futuristic area. It's like a massive world role-playing game where you play this guy with cybernetic enhancements, or I think just a lot of things. Look, honestly, I don't know a lot about the game. I've seen a couple of the trailers. It looks great, but honestly, I have not read into it or anything like that, so I honestly don't know a lot. Other than the trailer looks pretty damn good. Sebastian writes, can you give us a date for the next donation cast? No, I don't have a date for that. I've got a lot of stuff on my plate right now. Probably won't be at least minimum till sometime in October, but I will let you guys know when we're going to do that. Mike Zambrano writes, Peppermint was a fun movie. Garner is great. There were definitely moments of fun in Peppermint. And definitely Jennifer Garner is great in it. But unfortunately, for me, I can't recommend it. I thought the bad parts of the film, I thought the bad parts of the film overshadowed the good parts. So while I love my girl Jennifer Garner, and she was really great in it, and there were great moments of fun, it hurts my heart to say I can't recommend it. But hey, again, if you're just looking for some good, cheap fun at the movies this weekend, yeah, give Peppermint a shot. Maybe it'll work for you. Dakota Barber writes, rewatch some of Fugitive after many years. So good. Seriously, take away Indy, take away Star Wars. I think The Fugitive is my favorite Harrison Ford movie. That movie's so damn good. And Tommy Lee Jones, I think, got nominated for an Academy Award for that. Anyway, The Fugitive is awesome. If you have not seen it yet, follow Dakota's example here, and make sure you check it out. It is a brilliant movie. It's awesome. Check it out. All right. Jedi Lori writes, if fans of Star Wars change, will you go to Celebration? I don't know. Like my brother-in-law, Stan, he's married to Anne's sister. And I talk about this sometimes. It's really funny because you know Anne's short, right? Olive is even shorter than Anne. And Stan is like 6'7", or around there, something like that, right? So like Olive comes like up to here on Stan. Stan is this giant of a man. And he's also into bodybuilding and stuff like that. And then seeing Olive next to him is pretty funny. But anyway, Stan has been trying to talk us into going to Celebration. I honestly, like the whole toxicity in the Star Wars fandom really turned me off. And I don't think I have any plans to go. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind. But I don't think I will. But hey, look, I will say this. I went to the last Star Wars Celebration in Orlando. Had a blast. It's a great time. And if you're somebody who's been thinking about going to the next one, you should. You should. Go check it out. Don't let my issues deter you at all. If you think you want to check it out and you hear how much fun it can be, you should absolutely go and check it out. Let's see. Ben Hayusa writes, Sheriff Branford, the fact that you are a sheriff is not germane to the situation. Buford T. Justice, the goddamn Germans got nothing to do with it. I don't know why, but that is always funny. From Smoking the Bandit, such a great line. So you got Jackie Gleason playing Buford T. Justice, the sheriff who's after Smokey, right? Or he's after the bandit. He's after Burt Reynolds. And he's in the wrong jurisdiction trying to chase him down. And so another sheriff is on the radio with him saying, hey, look, just because you're a sheriff is not germane, or it's not applicable. It doesn't make any difference in the situation just because you're a sheriff. But he says germane, and Buford T. Jackson's reaction, the Germans have got nothing to do with it. It's just, in context in the movie, you'll spit a lung out. It's so funny. It's not as funny when I'm saying it, but when you watch it in the movie and you see it play out, it's really, really killer. It's great. Ben follows that up with, I wasn't interested in this movie before, but after hearing good things about it, I'm going to check out Searching later. Won't see The Nun until next weekend. Yeah, I still got to see Searching. I thought about trying to do a triple header yesterday with Nun and Peppermint, but I just didn't have the time. I still have to see Searching. And I've still not talked to a single person that did not love that movie. And which is amazing because the trailers are so bad. The trailers look boring and terrible and cheap. But everybody, without exception, that I know that has seen it is saying they love it. A lot of them are saying it's in their top 5 favorite films of the year. So I got to get out and see this thing. Curtis Lopez writes, The Nun was disappointing, but I also saw Searching, and damn, what a great film. Top 3 of 2018. Thank you, Curtis. Perfect timing. There's another example of somebody who has seen Searching and is raving for it. And yeah, The Nun is disappointing. Look, The Nun is not a steaming pile of garbage. No, it's not. I don't misinterpret. It's not a steaming pile of garbage. It's just a poor film. It's just not good. There are some redeeming things about it, and I mentioned those earlier. So yeah, there are redeeming elements to it. It's just that it's not good. Not super horrible, just not good. And at the end of the day, especially coming off of Annabelle Creation, which I did think was really sharp and really quite good, The Nun is a disappointment for me. Tyler Yeats writes, Hey John, just curious if you've seen The Big Short and what your thoughts are. I really enjoyed it, and each time I watch it, it always taught me more about the economy. Yes, Steve Carell, Christian Bale, on a huge cast. It's a complicated movie. You mentioned each time you watch it. It's a film you gotta watch a few times through, man. It's a film you've gotta watch a few times through because so much information is just constantly being thrown at the screen. It's almost part documentary, right? The way that the director presents information in it, it's like it's like you got your narrative part of the movie, and then they pause the movie to step into like a documentary thing where they just teach you some information, like the Margot Robbie scene in it, right? And it's funny, if you haven't seen The Big Short yet, like the movie's going along, and you're going, I didn't know Margot Robbie was in it. She's got one scene in it, but the movie's going along. And then all of a sudden they stop the movie and they cut to, here's Margot Robbie in a bathtub. And it's Margot Robbie just in a bathtub with bubbles talking about these economic principles that are just being discussed in the movie here. And then they go back to the movie. Like it's kind of creative the way they do it. And it's almost like there's a little bit of documentary DNA in the film. But it's great. I believe it was nominated for Best Picture. Steve Carell. I mean, it's getting boring to say it, but Steve Carell's awesome. Steve Carell's awesome in everything he's in. Christian Bale was great in it. It's a wonderful movie. I really, really dug it. But there is so much information in it that if you're really going to grasp it, you got to watch it multiple times because it's that, and that's maybe a downside of the movie, is that they try to throw too much information at you in a too short period of time. Maybe they should have paced it out a little bit better. I don't know, but it's a great movie. Curtis Lopez writes, Conjuring 1 and 2 I enjoy because the stories, even though supernatural, felt real and grounded. The Nun gets too goofy with its narrative. Yeah, I mean, like I said, and especially, you know where the goofiness really comes out to me is in the dialogue. And I mentioned that in my review part. The goofy parts that really come out in the dialogue. And like I said, you get it right from the beginning with that first scene with the two nuns. It's like, oh, really? Oh, and it feels like video game cutscene dialogue. And I don't mean that in a good way. And it's unfortunate. Sebastian writes, please buy the Sideshow Collectibles Thanos, the hot toy. The detail on their products is amazing. Improving your set might be a good idea for 2019. The thing is, though, they're expensive. They are expensive. Anne has already given me my spousal permission to pick it up. Anne's actually encouraged me to get it. I have a great guy. There are guys over North America, right, just wishing they had a wife who would tell them, you should go buy more hot toys, right? Anyway, so I've got my wife telling me to do that. I'm like, oh, but they're so expensive. I'm hoping to pick it up one day. Maybe I'll pick one up secondhand. Maybe I'll go, maybe in a year or so, I'll go to the toy stores and find an open box one and just buy. Like, I'm not one of these guys. Like, if you notice when I point out my hot toys, they're not in their boxes. I don't keep all the various pieces. I don't even keep the boxes. Like, oh, John, all the value's in the box. Yeah, I understand that, but I just like having the toy on the shelf, and I like looking at it. That's all. So maybe I can find one cheaper, like in a year or so. I don't know. Ben Hayusa follows up with, but yeah, now Sheriff Justice can finally chase the bandit up there in heaven. R.I.P. to both legends. Also, thoughts on the other two Smokey and the Bandit films. The other two ones weren't all that good. Well, only Smokey 2, out of 2 and 3, only 2 had Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds didn't come back for number 3. And it was a big step down from the first Smokey and the Bandit, and 3 is not even really worth talking about. I mean, they all had Jackie Gleason. He played in it all the way through, but the third one didn't have Burt Reynolds in it, so not even really worth talking about. So when I think of Smokey and the Bandit, I honestly just think of the first one. Brad Timms writes, knowing that the post-snap deaths were temporary, do you think the snap was worth doing? Personally, I think Marvel can find a way to make the snap worth it. Well, I mean, it has become a giant issue of frustration. And, I've been talking about this for years. I love the Marvel movies, but one of my constant critiques of them is the fake deaths. Fake deaths everywhere. They always fake death people. Always. Try to fool the audience. Hey, look, that character's dead. Oh, no. Oh, just kidding. Nick Fury's back at the end. And that's one of the things. And the snap is the biggest scale of them all. Spider-Man's coming, and whatever way they explain it, whether they undo the snap in Avengers 4, whether they create a new reality where that never happened in the first place, whatever way they explain it, the fact of the matter is this. They said Spider-Man's dead, and now we got a new Spider-Man movie with the same character. It's fake deaths. Whatever their explanation is, it's still fake deaths. However, having said that, I still think it was worth it. Was it worth doing? Well, all you have to do is sit in a theater of Avengers Infinity War and watch the reactions of everybody in the theater when the snap happens. There's gasping and oohing and awing and crying and all stuff in the theaters. That's your answer right there. Was it worth doing? Well, watch the audience when it happens, right? The reaction they get from the audience, it's pretty... The fact that everybody is still talking about this movie that came out... It's out on home video now, and we're still constantly talking about the snap. that pretty much, yes, it plays into one of the big frustrating things for me with the fake killing, but there's no denying the impact that it had on the audience and on their story. So was it worth doing? As somebody who hates the fake death stuff, even I gotta say, it was worth doing. Yeah, man. Sebastian writes, I was wrong about the nun. It's going to kill it. Pun, very funny. Patrick Conway writes, Schnepp in Ferris Bueller, where? I just rewatched it. John Schnepp is in the big, when Ferris goes to the parade and he starts singing. John Schnepp's you can see him too. It's not like he's hidden somewhere. You can see him. He's in the crowd. John Schnepp's one of the guys dancing in the crowd. It was actually filmed in Chicago. Schnepp was living in Chicago at the time, and you can actually see him in it. So yeah, that's the scene you're going to find him in. Dave Aikens writes, after 24 years CG, the mask still holds up. Well, yes and no. I love The Mask, by the way. The Mask with Jim Carrey. The CG holds up in the sense that it's supposed to be ridiculous, cartoony looking CG. On that level, it still works because that's what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? As far as the actual technical achievement of CG, no, it doesn't measure up to today's at all. But since it's supposed to look animated and goofy, and it was supposed to look fake in many ways, on that level, yes, absolutely it holds up still, on that level. History Soup writes, should Marvel use Fantastic Four villains without Fantastic Four? Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, look, lots of superhero villains cross over with other heroes other than their primary hero. So they could. Remember, as of right now, it's still not a done deal. We got to wait for all the government approvals, but it's probably going to get cleared. When it does, why not? I'm not saying they should do that, but I'm also don't see any reason why they shouldn't if they want to. A character is a character is a character. You know, Deathstroke is not primarily a Batman villain, but we all got real excited when it looked like Ben Affleck's Batman was going to have Deathstroke as the villain. So, yeah, why not? A character is a character is a character. And if you got access to a good villainous character and you think that good villainous character would pair up well with an Iron Man in an Iron Man movie, go for it. Absolutely go for it. Let's see. Brad Timms writes, I bet you weren't expecting to see another Mystery Men reference. So, Spoon? Man, the Blue Raja, played by Hank Azaria in Mystery Men, has so many great lines. So many great lines. Actually, you know what? One of the funniest parts in the movie to me is a line nobody laughs at. Nobody laughs at. It's near the beginning of the movie when Mr. Furious, the Shoveler, and the Blue Raja, Ben Stiller, William H. Macy, and Hank Azaria, they've just had a failed attempt at crime fighting, and they're sitting in a diner now, eating dinner. And the bill comes, and they say, okay, we're going to split the bill 3 ways. And Hank Azaria's like, the Blue Raja's like, now wait a minute. You guys had steak, and you had this and this, and I just had a salad. Why split it 3 ways? And William H. Macy says, that's the rule. We always split 3 ways. Then Hank Azaria goes, all I'm saying is that when you split the bill 3 ways, the steak man gets the advantage and the salad man gets charged. I can't even remember the exact wording. All I remember is that every time I see that movie and they talk about the unfair nature of just splitting the bill 3 ways when one guy gets salad and the other guy gets steak, makes me laugh every single time. Sebastian writes, why does my iPhone recommend my local AMC as a travel destination on the daily? It's 8:26. The AMC is pulling me closer. Couldn't it recommend the gym? You know, the phone probably just recognizes that you're at that location a bunch. So that's probably why it thinks that. It's kind of part of the built-in algorithm. And it maybe your phone also knows your browsing stuff. If you're looking up and watching a lot of movie-related stuff, it'll probably recommend a movie theater. Robbie J. Royster writes, why does Budweiser keep showing up in Transformers 4? Sponsorship money, man. I mean, it's obnoxious. They weren't even slightly subtle about it. First of all, there's so many problems with that movie, but that was one of them. It was just so obnoxious product placement. I don't mind product placement in a movie. I don't. But when you make it so obvious, they're paying us big money to keep their brand label right in the front of the screen, then it becomes a little bit obnoxious. Preston Walden writes, I saw Peppermint last night. Jennifer Garner kicks ass. Completely agree. She kicks all types of ass. She's great in the movie, even though the movie's not all that wonderful. But she is a legit action star. Jennifer Garner is a legit action star. She's fabulous in it. Sebastian writes, you think non-compete clauses aren't enforceable? They aren't enforceable. I mentioned the other day that you can't have like, oh, so-and-so's in a movie with that studio, you can't do another one. I said, well, actually, that's not true. You can write a non-compete clause in a contract, but it's invalid. It's completely invalid. In the state of California in particular, you go to them with any type of contract dispute over non-compete clauses, they'll just instantly throw it out. You cannot have non-compete. I mean, you can put it in a contract. It's not illegal for you to put it in a contract, but I can then challenge that in court and the court will throw it out immediately. It's absolutely the case. Now, there are some other places where it can be enforceable, but in the state of California and other places, and let's face it, the entertainment industry is based in California. Non-compete stuff, instantly thrown out by the court. Instantly invalidated by the court. So that's just part of the reality. Ganem McIntyre writes, who do you think is the best young actor and actress working today? My picks would be Margot Robbie. Margot's almost 30. I don't know if I'd put her in the category of young Hollywood per se, but and Donald Gleason, both show tones of range. Hold a second. I think Donald's 35, so I wouldn't classify him as young Hollywood either. Right off the top of my head, Call Me By Your Name, Timothée Chalamet, who's going to be starring in Dune, and he's got that movie coming out with Steve Carell called Beautiful Boy, I believe it's called. It looks like he's going to get another Academy Award nomination. He's already got an Academy Award nomination for Call Me By Your Name. He, right now, is the young actor, to me, to really keep your eyes on. That's the one. Actress, I'm not really sure. I can't pull any off the top of my head. But Timothy would be the guy right now that I would say is probably the one with the spotlight on him. I think that's the guy that we got to keep our eyes on. He's already got one Academy Award nomination. He's probably going to get another one for Beautiful Boy. And I'm really excited to see what he does in Dune. So that could be pretty cool. All right. Let's see here. Jordan Miller writes, Spider-Man PS4 is everything I wanted it to be so far. Fluid gameplay and good story. It's a Peter Parker story just as much as it is Spidey's. You know what, Jordan? One of the things that really caught my attention in the reviews, that really got my attention and piqued my curiosity in the reviews for Marvel Spider-Man, the game, was that a lot of people are saying it's a Peter Parker. It does more to evolve Peter Parker. And it actually spends a lot of time focused on Peter than on his Spider-Man persona. And I find that fascinating. And that's actually one of the things that I think that might be the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge to going, okay, I'll go pick up a PlayStation 4 so I can play it. I think that's the thing that did it. So it's really good to hear you mention that as well, Jordan. All right, Justin T. writes, just saw the first Avengers film again in IMAX, and wow, still an amazingly fun movie. And the shawarma scene is the icing on the cake. Top 3 comic book movie. Yeah, for me, everybody knows that first Avengers movie, to me, is still the best comic book movie ever made. To me, it's still the best comic book movie ever made. I adore that film so much. And that's the one film that I really regret not being able to get out and watch in IMAX during the little film festival they just did. But if I get a chance to see that on the big screen again, you know I'm going to take advantage of that. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. That's good to know. Thanks for sharing that. Jordan Miller writes, and football is back, baby. Yes, it is. Actually, in between my double header last night, me and Sol were sitting in a yard house watching the final 20 minutes or final 15 minutes of the Falcons-Eagles game. What an ending to a game. What a great way to kick off the season. Anyway, who's your Super Bowl picks? I got Patriots and Saints. As a matter of fact, that is my picks as well. Brady versus Breeze with my Saints coming out on top. Who dat? You know what? Everybody talks about Aaron Rodgers. Completely understandable. But make no mistake, Tom Brady is the GOAT. And I would actually, if I was putting together a team, Aaron's got age on his side, though, too. I honestly don't know who I put as my number 2. Whether it be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, top 3, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady. Obviously, those are your top 3 guys. Your number 1 is Tom Brady, clearly. But as far as number 2 and number 3, I would honestly have a hard time figuring out and juggling where you put Aaron or where you put Drew Brees. I think as many accolades as Drew Brees has, he is one of the most underrated players all at the same time. He gets so much praise, and yet I still contend he is still underrated. He's still underrated. But to me, those are your top 3 quarterbacks in the league. Sebastian writes, John, I just don't understand how an industry so focused on revenue doesn't see 39.5% growth in August, and September is the same. September is killing it. Well, Sebastian, the only reason you know that there's that growth is because the industry is telling you about the growth. The industry recognizes it, but also keep in mind, a big part of that growth was the fact that last August was awful. So let's say I make $1,000 a day, right? And then one day I have a terrible day and I only make $100. So I don't know, let's say I'm a professional poker player and I make $1,000 a day. And then one day I only make $100. But the next day, I make $1,000 again. We can go, you had a 500% increase. Or a 1,000% increase, actually. You had a 1,000% increase in one day. Woo! But, well, actually it's because yesterday was a horrible day. That's why I had the big increase today. A lot of that percentage comes from the fact that last August was so horrible. That's the thing. And September, well, yeah, we're only 7 days in, so let's not get too hyped up about September just yet. Somebody named Ann Campea is writing, hi, honey, miss you. I think, where's Martha's Vineyard? Is that where she's at? My Ann has left me again. She's off on the East Coast for business and hanging out with friends from Hasbro. And she's sending me pictures of this dog in this house that she's staying with. She loves it. So I miss you too, baby. Come home soon. Curtis Lopez writes, I hope in Avengers 4 we get a scene with Rocket and Shuri. Imagine her scolding Rocket for touching Wakandan weaponry in her lab. Look, I just want to see anything with more Shuri. Shuri is one of my favorite. I still go back and forth a little bit whether M'Baku or Shuri is my favorite side character. And Okoye is awesome and Nakia is awesome and they're all great. But I love that Shuri character, man. Love her. And Rocket was great in it. That would be a fun scene, Curtis. That would absolutely be a fun scene. All right. Curtis follows it up with, no one has brought this up, but with Wakanda's technology, what do you think their film industry is like? It's a good question. I'm going to guess they don't have a film industry. Maybe I'm right or wrong to feel that way, but I don't think they have a film industry. So I'm going to go with that. John Hine writes, you should check out the We the Animals trailer. Well, thanks for putting that on my radar. I have not even heard of it. So thank you for, I'm just going to bring that up right now. Just so I've got it here waiting. And there it is. All right, so now I've got it sitting here, and I will check that out later. Thanks for bringing that up, John. Static Space Sean writes, can we please get a Ben Affleck written and directed movie about the drama between him and Warner Brothers? Bonus, it should star all the former Batmen. Well, no, that's a bad idea. Now, first of all, and I know you're being facetious, but I love the idea of someday seeing a movie about all the behind-the-scenes stuff and the turmoil and how everything fell apart between DC and Ben Affleck. How he's writing and directing and starring. Now then he's not directing and he's not writing and probably not starring either. Like all that drama and all that kind of stuff, I would love to see a movie about it. But even I wouldn't want to see it written and directed by Ben Affleck because then it would clearly be completely biased. But, oh my God, I would love... Someday, there's got to be somebody to step up and make a movie about this. They've got to step up and make a movie about this someday. It just looks too rich. Way too rich. I've got to see it. But yeah, and I know you were just being facetious, but just to highlight, it can't be written or directed by Ben Affleck because then it's far too biased. All right. Wait a second. Where'd Dominic go? There he is. Dominic writes, I've been really struggling to get a good job after college, and your shows got me through a lot of the struggles that came with that. Glad to say I got a great job in downtown Pasadena. Okay, congrats. I love Pasadena. Thank you. Well, again, first of all, Dominic, thank you for sharing that, man. That's awesome. And thank you for supporting the channel. One of the things, and I say it all the time, you know what? I don't care. I'll say this 5 times every day because it's so true and it's so real and it's so important. The film fan community is a great place for film fans, right? We can come, we can engage, we can take our problems. See, and I said this before, but I'll say it every day because it's so true. It's not that movies distract us. It's that movies and talking about movies give us a bit of a break from our real world stuff and our real world problems. We get a break, we smile, we laugh, we have a good time, and then our minds reset, we step back into facing our issues, but now we can see our issues from a little bit of a better perspective. We're a little bit more refreshed. We can see them and put them in perspective a little bit better. It's just a great thing, and that's one of the things I love about movies and the movie fan community. And I love hearing from Dominic, guys like you and other people who've written in and saying things like, you know, I was just in the hospital for 2 months and watching the shows and talking with everybody online, helped get me through and blah, blah, blah. I love these stories because I'm going to tell you what, when I'm in a bad funk and I'm in a bad place, watching a good movie and getting online and jumping into some really good movie conversations, it lets me take a breath. It helps me put things back into perspective, and it makes the things I need to deal with just seem a little bit more manageable. And I love that about the film fan community, and I love that you shared that with us, Dominic. Thanks so much for that, man. All right, Sebastian writes, Captain Marvel is not political. It's audience focused. Completely agree. Yeah, this is definitely a creative decision. It's an audience decision, which is what most movies are. And I completely agree. It's not a political one. Tongers Viking writes, Forbes released off images of that solo character. Forbes released off images. I'll confess, I'm not completely clear on what you're talking about, Tongers. Unless you're talking about, did Forbes release a picture of the character that pops up at the end of the movie, and you're saying they put out an image of that? Well, if they did, bad form, but it's not like the movie is still in theaters or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's effectively done its theatrical run, so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if that's the case, and if that's what you're talking about. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Joe Martin just sends in a super chat to support. Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate that, man. Stephen Beam writes, may have been asked this before, but who in the MCU do you think will be replaced by female leads? Will they bring in Ironheart, Jane Foster? No and no. I don't think they'll do either. I think the way to do it, again, those are derivative characters. To me, you go with your original female, Shuri, Black Widow, Captain Marvel. They're like Scarlet Witch, Wasp. You have enough female characters who are originally female characters that you don't need to pull and look, and if they want to pull the cheap trick of saying Captain America's a guy, now Captain America's a woman. Okay, you can do that, and that's fine if you want to. The only problem I have with that is that you have so many great original female characters that you can go to. I have no problem with swapping races, genders, whatever. I have no problem with that. I don't care as long as you give me a good movie. The only issue I would have with stuff like that is that why just do a cheap swap out of a male Iron Man with a female Iron Man when you've got so many good original female characters that you can draw from already? That's the only issue I would have. That's the only issue I would have. James, regarding the snap, it was the dramatic setup. The real sacrifice will come during its undoing. Maybe. There's a hell of a lot of sacrifice. Doctor Strange, that thematic idea of sacrifice in Avengers. Watch where it is really Thor slowly became Thor's in the fandom. The up quite a bit. result of those movies. So these are keep, these are and all that types of good. All right, and then we go into the final question. Who writes, ever seen Joaquin Phoenix? Answer, and his family taken into a who's a little boy, like his sense of, so the dad makes far gets and everything the most. Thanks a lot for joining me. Listen back a little bit. That'll do it for me for now. Thanks for being here.